legs are so sore.
Oh, what are you doing? Is it cold down there?
No, it's actually quite nice.
Okay, assembly sequence. Well, the very first thing would actually be fuse your facings. So make sure you fuse your facings. I've also gone through. Oh, sorry, can someone just turn that off? On the button, on the switch, the plug. Sorry, I was trying to think of the word. Okay, so I've gone through and I've labelled all my right sides. So I've gone through all of my bundle, opened it all out, and I've written right side on all of my right sides. So I'm really clear on what my right sides are, because I always talk to you about put your right sides together. Okay, I've even gone through on my facing and marked my right side of my facing. Even though it is the inside of your garment, this facing is on the inside of your garment, it still has a right and a wrong side, okay? So, and the right side is the side that's not fused. Clearly, on the back, when I get to sticky on it and iron it on, the wrong side will be fused, okay? So, what does it say? What does it say? What does it say? Flatbed the garment. So, centre front panel to side front panels. Okay. I'm going to grab out my centre front panel. I'm going to grab out my side front panels. Put those out of the way so we're not confusing anything anymore. Okay, opening up. Right side up. My centre front panel, so that's my right side up of my centre front panel. Put a weight on that because it's about to go south. And then I'm going to put my right sides together. So this is my princess line seam down here. And this is my princess line seams here. Let's find the right sides. Let's grab one for a start. Now what I'm going to do, remember how we put a notch in the top of that princess line seam? What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, with my erasable pen, did I talk to you guys about getting an erasable pen or a mark, some kind of fabric marker? Yep.
Yeah.
So, yep, so if you can grab one, because I would prefer that you don't just use, because some of us actually might start doing actual fabric. So, on my princess line dress, right where that notch is, I'm going to draw in that seam allowance. It's going to help me. So I've just drawn in the top 1 centimetre seam allowance, and that's where my notch is right there. If I opened it out, you'll see my notch. Okay, I'm going to do the same on my front. Once again, that's my princess line seam, and that's my notch. Same thing, coming into it, and I've marked this 1 centimetre seam allowance, and I've marked it on my right side, because I'm now going to pin. I bet you I've got the wrong side, haven't I? I have. Let's try the other side, Tina. Of course you've got the wrong side. Mark the 1 centimetre seam allowance in that princess line. Okay, I'm now going to put yes, because that is the right side. Those two sides go together, yep. I'm going to put my right sides together now. So right sides together, and I'm going to match up, when you look at those two lines, I'm going to match up those two lines. Why is that so blurry? Not sure. Match up those two lines, cut edge to cut edge on this side, and where the notches meet should be at the end of your 1 centimetre seam allowance. So that's where your two cut edges should meet. Everyone following me? So I've aligned my cut edges, my notches, cut edges along here, notch along here. Put a pin through. So if I lift up that pin, those two red marks should be matching underneath. Okay. I'm now going to work, so I've got a pin going that direction because that's for my start point. I'm now going to work my way around and down that line, because that cut edge is going to now move around and keep going down. Okay. The next notch I come to is my bust points. So I've got my two bust point notches matching. I'm putting a pin in it. Okay, right where my bust point is. Keep going down. My next notches that should match are my waist notches. pin in it. Keep going down. Sorry, just get my scissors out of the way. Next notches after my waist are my hip notches. Matching them. Right to my hem. Next and last notches are my hems. My hem notches should match on the cut edge here, but also on the cut edge there. If anyone has a step, no one should have a step because that means your pattern's wrong. But if anyone does have a step, can you please come and show me? Because there shouldn't be any steps. Steps mean something's wrong if things aren't matching. So I've got a pin at my hem, edges matching perfectly, no steps, sides matching perfectly, and I pinned my hip, my waist, my bust, and starting off life, I've pinned in the direction that I want to go. Because remember, the very first thing I did was I marked in that seam allowance so I could clearly see that they matched. Okay. When we look at it, it seems or it appears like one side has more in it than the other side. Okay, that's an absolute optical illusion purely because you've got two opposing curves. You've got a concave curve going into a convex curve. You'll see what I'm doing with my fingers. I'm matching up those edges, and with my fingers, I'm pushing my fingers into where the seam, where I'm going to stitch is, and you'll see that it smooths out some of that. Appears to be ease. It's not ease. It's just because the outside edge is greater in distance, but the stitching line and the seam line should be exactly perfect. So, and then I'm putting in lots and lots of pins to make sure that I haven't just stuck one big chunk. And the more you pin, it almost looks like the ease disappears, which there is no ease, so that's why it disappears, because you're pinning on. And you'll notice that my pins are where I'm going to stitch. That's where I put in and out my pins, where I'm going to stitch. So now, doesn't look like there's any ease at all. It looks absolutely beautiful and flush because I put lots of pins in there all the way around. Because now I'm going to sew. Okay?
Did you test your machine, Tina?
No, I didn't. Did you want to test it for me?
Nope.
You don't? Okay, 1 centimetre seam allowance. One centimetre seam allowance all the way. Accuracy, okay? You need to check, and there's a few people in this class that we're checking for accurate seam allowances because their last lot of sewing wasn't so accurate. So make sure your 1 centimetre seam allowances is very accurate the whole way through. And when I finish sewing, what I'm checking for are tucks. I'm checking to see if there's any tucks through these two curves when I've attached them through there. I pull it to the right side and I have a look. There shouldn't be a step here. This armhole should be a nice smooth line. And I'm working my way round, and as I'm working my way around, there shouldn't be any tucks. If there is a tuck through here anywhere, don't unpick the whole section. You just need to unpick 1 centimetre either side, and then unpick just that little tiny section, do a joining stitch, rejig it a bit, and off you go. Just restitch that section. Okay, so where did I start, people? What did I do? What was the very first thing I did? Okay, so let's do it. So, very first thing I did on the princess line seam was I marked in 1 centimetre seam allowance. working too well. Okay, and once again, there should be a notch there as well, right at the end, should be a notch. The other one, same thing, princess line. Should have marked in my 1 centimetre seam allowance, already have because I did it accidentally before. Now I'm going to line those two up. Remember, I'm lining up the princess line seam cut edge and the notch where the notch joins the seam, which means those two lines that I've just drawn should match perfectly. And I'm going to put a pin in that end. If I can find a pin. Put a pin in that end. Oopsie, come move it down a bit. And then what was the next thing I did? Okay, then I would move my way around so that those edges, those cut edges, match until I get to my first notch, which would be my bust notch. Matches my two bust notches. Pin in. Keep going along that cut edge. My next knot notch is my... Now what if I find, as I'm pinning these two together, what if I'm finding that my one side has a single notch but the other side has a double notch? What does that tell me?
It's from the back.
I've got the wrong panel, okay? So it should be, fronts should be single and single notches down these princess lines, and backs should be, and the lucky last pin is my hem. Matching my hems, matching on the hem and on the seam, princess line seam, okay? Alrighty, and then we put lots of pins through our bust section. Alrighty, so I want you to go for me. I want you to mark up your front princess line seam allowances, and I want you to flatbed them both on your fronts only, and I want you to come and show me. I want you to come and show me, please, as soon as you have done that before you overlock. Thank you.